26. The fear of victory. Now Elisha was fallen sick of his sickness whereof he died, and Joash the king of Israel came down unto him and wept over his face and said, O my father, the chariot of Israel and the horsemen thereof. And Israel said unto him, Take bow and arrows. And he took unto him bow and arrows. And he said to the king of Israel, Put thine hand upon the bow. And he put his hand upon it. And Elisha put his hands upon the king's hands. And he said, Open the window eastward. And he opened it. And Elisha said, Shoot. And he shot. And he said, The arrow of the Lord's deliverance, and the arrow of deliverance from Syria, for thou shalt smite the Syrians in Aphek till thou have consumed them. And he said, Take the arrows. And he took them. And he said unto the king of Israel, Smite upon the ground. And he smote thrice and stayed. And the man of God was wroth with him, and said, Thou shouldst have smitten 5 or 6 times, then hadst thou smitten Syria till thou hadst consumed it, whereas now thou shalt smite Syria but thrice. And Elisha died, and they buried him. And the bands of the Moabites invaded the land at the coming in of the year. And it came to pass, as they were burying a man, that, behold, they spied a band of men, and they cast the man into the sepulchre of Elisha. And when the man was let down and touched the bones of Elisha, he revived and stood up on his feet. 2 Kings 13:14-21. Elisha on his deathbed is visited by the young king Joash. For 63 years Elisha had been the great prophet in and to Israel. Joash thus went further than other kings of Israel in visiting the dying man. Prophets had not been popular with the monarchs, who regarded them as dangerous meddlers. Joash, however, pays a very fine and accurate tribute to Elisha. He calls him the chariot of Israel and the horsemen thereof, and father protector to the realm. Elisha is thus declared to be the true national defense of the kingdom. Joash knew the truth. His problem was his unwillingness to live in terms of it. Elisha ordered Joash to take a bow and arrows and stand at an open east window. Elisha then placed his hands on the king's hands, thereby making it clear that the king's war against Syria was the prophet's and God's war. Elisha made it very clear to Joash what all this meant. Joash would have victory in forthcoming battle, the arrow of the Lord's deliverance, and the arrow of deliverance from Syria, for thou shalt smite the Syrians in Aphek till thou have consumed them. Verse 17. Elisha then ordered Joash to take the arrows and, either by bow or by hand, drive them into the ground outside the door. Elisha's clear intent is, first, that the whole quiver of arrows be used. He does not limit the number. His order is to drive the arrows into the ground. Like Ahab before him, Joash was unwilling to destroy Syria for fear of Assyria. He preferred to keep an enemy state alive as a buffer against the Assyrian Empire. This, the policy of Omri's dynasty, was now also the policy of the house of Jehu. Joash preferred fighting Syria to unswerving obedience to God. He was afraid of victory, because victory would lead to great responsibilities. The fear of victory is not unusual. Doctors are plagued with healthy people with imaginary ailments. Others who do not go to doctors are always complaining about not feeling well, although they are as healthy as an ox. They fear health because it brings them face to face with their responsibilities as men and women. In one way or another, countless people cripple themselves either physically or spiritually to avoid meeting life victoriously. The responsibilities of success and victory are avoided by many. For Joash, the fullness of victory required a fullness of surrender and truth in the Lord, and obedience. Men are afraid to trust God wholly because they know God requires all of them. For them, to be totally faithful to the Lord is defeat for the self. It means that they are no longer captains of their souls and master of their fates. God then becomes their Lord. Men prefer their sovereignty to God's sovereignty. This was the case with Joash. We are told that Joash did indeed defeat Syria 3 times, but no more. 2 Kings 13:25. Elisha died and was buried. In the next year, a Moabite invasion took place. One of the Moabites was killed in action. As his burial was in progress, the Moabites found it necessary to face an Israelite detachment. The dead Moabite was hastily dropped into Elisha's sepulchre. When his body touched the bones of Elisha, the man regained life and joined his fellow soldiers. The miracle came to be known in Israel as well as in Moab. Here, late in the day, God still offers Joash victory. The miracle witnesses to the fact that the power of the God of Elisha is still available if Joash repents. This miracle of Elisha's bones is very important in church history because of its part in the veneration of relics. Very early, the church gave high place to the relics of saints and martyrs. In assessing this practice, 2 separate questions need to be answered. First, what is the source of the veneration of relics? Is it, rightly or wrongly, based on something in the Bible, or is it pagan? It is easy and misleading to find pagan analogies to many practices. Thus, all too many Christians are convinced that Christmas trees are pagan in origin. It is clear that the worship of trees is to be found in many pagan cultures, but this means nothing. Marriage is also found in many cultures, but this does not invalidate marriage. The Christmas tree was plainly the tree of life, Jesus Christ, Genesis 2:9, Revelation 22:2, etc. And until this generation, the ornaments represented fruit borne by that tree. Similarly, the veneration of relics is modelled upon the miracle proceeding from the bones of Elisha. Christians from the beginning showed greater care for their dead than did members of other religions, by and large because of their resurrection faith. This meant a respect for all the Christian dead, and especially saints and martyrs. There was no paganism in any of this, any more than with us if we treasure a gift from a departed family member or a letter from some great Christian. The pagan analogies are there, but they are meaningless. Some people prize mementos of Elvis Presley. Does this mean we are influenced by him and his wretched life and music, if we in turn treasure some memento of a great Christian? The source of the practice for the church was the bones of Elisha, and a normal sense of family love for the great men and women of our faith. Second, granted that the source of the veneration of relics was biblical, was the practice biblical? Basic to the practice was the belief that power went out of the great saints of God. It even went out from the border of Christ's garments, Matthew 9:20-22, 14:36. Out of this came the belief that, because God's power was at work in the lives of his saints, power could still go forth from their bones and relics. A subordinate aspect of this belief was the feeling that there was virtue and continuity in having relics in a church. The frauds, of course, were numerous, and the reformers, both Protestant and Catholic, ridiculed the many absurdities that existed. However, we must recognize that it was not an innovating spirit which led to the veneration of relics, but a very conspicuously conservative temper. Innovations were distrusted, and a local church's need for relics was to bind itself to the Church of the Ages and the saints of Scripture. This belief in the power of God manifest in the past led to absurdities in the veneration of the past and its relics. The Protestant form of this veneration of the past has been the idealization of the early church, which was not lacking in sinners and problems as well as its saints. The practice thus went beyond Scripture. It limited the vision of men too much to the past and too little to the present and future. Relics and their veneration, as well as the veneration of the early church, have thrived because of faulty eschatologies. If the greatness of Christ's work is seen as a past event, we will venerate the past. If we see greater works as ahead of us, John 14:12, then we will work expectantly, confident that the splendor of God's power has not yet been made fully manifest, but shall be. Thus, a postmillennial perspective is the biblical remedy for this orientation on the past. The veneration of the past is an aspect of the fear of victory. This has been a Chalcedon Foundation production, produced by Grace Community School and Nicene Covenant Church, published by Ross House Books. Copyright 2003, Mark R. Rushdoony. If you've enjoyed this audiobook, be sure to visit chalcedon.edu for more books and audiobooks by R.J. Rushdoony.